Speaker recognizes Representative Martus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of this resolution. And I did not want today to be the first time that I rose to speak in this esteemed chamber. My plan was, during my career, to defer to some of my more experienced colleagues, bide my time, and wait one day to be able to speak on one of the transformative pieces of legislation that we're going to pass in this esteemed body, talking about expanding health care or investing in infrastructure. But today, it's important for me to stand up. I did not plan to speak on such an issue. If I had, I would have shaved this goatee off. But today, I have to speak on behalf of a generation and a community that knows this problem all too well. I rise today not just as a legislator, though it is my honor to represent my community, nor as a Spartan, though I am a proud graduate of the class of 2021, but being a member of a generation that knows this epidemic of gun violence personally. I was born a year after Columbine, when demands of gun reform were drowned out, where folks blamed heavy metal music, Marilyn Manson, video games, or the internet for an issue that was caused by gun violence. I grew up going to school where we would practice lockdown so young that the idea of gun violence couldn't be discussed. Our teachers would talk about it in the case of what if a villain got into our school? The superheroes were going to come save us, that was for sure, but what if a villain got into our school? What would we do? And then I remember in my 7th grade computer class, always being a fan of current events, always refreshing CNN to see what the news was of the day, and seeing the news coming out of Newtown, when kids just a few years younger than me, a few years younger than my siblings, a few years younger than my classmates were gunned down in their classrooms. And I realized in that moment that this idea that it couldn't happen here, that it could happen there. And a few years later in high school, when news broke out from Parkland in Florida, I was proud of folks that were my age, my generation, who stood up and said, enough is enough. And I saw in those high schoolers, who were seniors in high school just like me at the time, that it could happen here. And now it happens in my alma mater, MSU. I had classes in Berkey Hall. Every member of my staff is a graduate or a current student at MSU. Ashley, Peyton, Maddie, and Jesse, I love you all, and I know that we have a bond not just as a staff, but as Spartans, and a few of them were watching on from their apartments as police officers raced to protect us. And then I spoke on the phone with my brother. My brother has 4 classes in Berkey Hall. He was hiding along with his roommates in their dorm room, scared for his life, his friends scared for their lives. And I called Max, and just being on the phone with him, I realized that we say always it couldn't happen here, it couldn't happen here. It did happen here. And I spoke to my friends who are still at MSU. As a recent graduate, those folks who are running away from the shooter, those folks that were victims of the shooter, I'm only a few years removed from them. So those were my classmates. Those are the folks that I went to school with. I know them. I've been in those positions before. To say that this can't happen again, it has happened, and if we don't take action, it will continue to happen. As we've heard a lot of great speeches today, the speeches are coming to an end, and it's time to get to work. Like many of my colleagues, I'm a person of faith, a proud Catholic, and I often go to Scripture during difficult times like these, and I reflect on the words from the book of James, that faith without works is dead. Thank you.